Just random answers. So, what we're going to do at the start here is I'm going to work with you on correctly completing all 6 of the questions on here. Then we're going to go back and pick one of them out, and we're going to figure out how we can figure out the wrong answers. Why would you put that as an answer, possibly, and see kind of the reasoning and the thought process that goes through this. So, remember, our job later is going to be to explain why certain ones are incorrect, because none of these are just going to be random. So, for instance, we've got a plane that travels at 600 miles per hour for 7 hours. How many miles did it travel? Well, this one's hopefully easy. Because hopefully you'd know that distance is rate times time. So if I know my rate, 600 miles per hour, and my time, 7 hours.
It's D.
Okay, would be D.
Can I tell you why I think A is wrong?
In a moment. So you can either, when we're doing these, I probably should have done this instead, but I actually can show where I came up with the correct answer. So what we're going to do here at the start, and we'll come back to number 1, we're going to find the correct answers on all of these, and then we're going to come back and hit number 1 and figure out why some of the answers, what you could do to kind of mess this up if possible. So let me scooch down here a little bit. All right, let's check out numero dos here. You earn $8 an hour for the first 40 hours you work per week and $12.50 per hour for each hour after 40. How much will you earn in a week in which you work 50 hours? Okay, 2 parts to this. I've got 50 hours, but I have a different rate for the first 40 and then the last 10. So for the first 40, how much am I getting per hour? Okay, so for the first 40, I get $8 per hour. And so I'd earn $320 for the first 40 hours I worked. But then how much do they give me for the last 10? $12.50. And again, I'd multiply that out. So once I know how much I got for the 40 and how much I got for that last 10, how do I figure out how much total I earned? Just add them up.
It's 445.
It is. So it'd be C in this case. Okay. But again, we'll come back to figuring out the incorrect answers in a little bit. Right now we're just working on finding the right ones. So keep on moving. All right, Starbucks. They mix 82% coffee with 18% milk to make a latte. How many gallons of coffee do you need if you have 6 gallons of milk? So here's my suggestion. We are going to have a milk to coffee ratio. So for every 18 parts of milk I have, I use 82 parts of coffee. So that's 6. Would that go with my milk part or my coffee part? Milk. And then X would be how many gallons of coffee I needed. So,
27.3.
okay, if I cross multiply, so I go ahead and multiply those out and divide by 18. And there's the 27.3, and I'm just going to mark in here that I showed the work up there. So again, you'll notice so far we've had a formula from like a science class. We've had some things with money. We've had a percent or proportion, not a percent proportion, but a proportion. So let's see what else we can get ourselves into here.
Is this like a process of elimination?
It's going to be. So let's see here. Let's give myself some room here. All right. My boss wants to install a fence around a customer's yard. The lot is 63.4 feet wide and 77.9 feet long. Okay, let's draw a picture. 63.4 wide, 77.9 long. To enclose the yard. Now, am I going to do area for that if I want to enclose the yard? Well, now that'd be area, but am I trying to figure out how much space is inside here? Perimeter. I'm looking for perimeter. So I'm going to add up all the way around the outer edge. So if I were to add those four things up, let's see here. No, I think that, yep, I was going to say, I think that'd be a little big.
And it's 634.
Now, I don't see that exact number, but this again would be the closest one. So I'll just write down what I added up. Sure, you can absolutely, yeah. If you've already drawn the picture and you want to draw an arrow up there, that's perfectly okay. And I get my answer that way. So you might even start to see as you're looking at some of the answers, if some of you did do something else, maybe you got that answer, like, oh, that's where that's coming from.
I added wrong.
And that can happen easily too. So number 5, you work for U-Haul. One thing I want to change on this. This is supposed to be 75 cents per mile, not 7.5 cents. So that 0 that's there, cross that out. I had a typo. So I work for U-Haul, and a customer wants to rent a moving van for 3 days. You have 2 different rates available. The first is $29.95 per day and 75 cents per mile. The second rate's $120 per day with unlimited miles. How far does the customer need to travel to make the second rate of $120 per day the better deal? Woo! There's a lot to that. Okay, one thing I do have to notice at the start, though. I'm doing this for 3 days. So I'm going to actually start with my second rate here. If it's $120 a day for 3 days, okay, so that's one side of my equation. I want to see when the two sides are equal to each other. So on the other one, I would have 3 times my cost per day, $29.95, plus, I'm not going to multiply this because it just costs per mile no matter how many miles I drive over those 3 days. It doesn't matter if I drive 100 the first day, then 50, then 300. The same method would apply. So once I get the equation set up, well, now I got to actually solve this. So I'll multiply there. Oh, let's see here. Where are we multiplied? I'm going to double check myself just to be sure here. 3 times $29.95. I think it's $89.85. Okay, it is. All right, now we're going to go algebra here a little bit. I can give it a go. If I want to solve for x, what do I need to do next? All right. All right, so we're going to come over to here. Whoops. Now my calculator's in the way. So 360 minus 89.85 is $270.15. And divide by the 0.75. Yeah, absolutely. And what does my x end up being? Yep, because even though I get something that's a little bit off from it.
Yeah, why would you round it 1?
Well, right, but again, if you look at the answers, I'd go with the one that's going to be the closest if I think I've done it correctly. And it actually, if anything, that would be where they'd be equal. So you'd have to go to the next mile until the other one would be the better deal. So actually, even on the rounding, that would end up being correct. So it's D. So then, one more, and then we're going to start breaking down how we could try to figure some of this out here. All right. Find the area. Oh, area. We should be good at this. Of a solar cover for a circular swimming pool. Okay, before I go any further, how do I find the area of a circle? You're close. No half, somebody said. Pi r squared. If I did 2 pi r, that would be circumference. So a little different. Now, here's the trouble. Notice what measurement all my answers are in. Feet. Here over here it talks about feet and inches. Uh-oh. I need this to be strictly feet. How many inches are in a foot?
So 12.9.
Nope. How many inches? If there were 10 inches in a foot, yes.
12.75.
Okay, now how did you get that?
9 divided by 12.
Right, since there's 12 inches in a foot, the 9 inches would be 9 over 12, which is 0.75. So 12.75 feet would be the equivalent of 12 feet 9 inches. So it's pi times 12.75 squared. And this is one of those, whether you use 3.14, or you use the pi button, you'll get close enough that you'll be able to make sure that you've got the right answer. If you hit second and the caret button, that up arrow, that will get you pi. But notice, let's say I didn't have a pi button or I didn't know where it was. You're going to basically get the same thing. Either way, I'm going to pick D. Because I just did pi r squared. So I did pi times my radius, the 12.75 squared. And depending on if you did it, you might get 0.7 or 0.4. Okay? So now, here's what the challenge becomes. And this is why I said probably working in a group would be your best outlet here. Yeah, this is going to be tricky. We're actually going to do the tricky part now. So for instance, if we come back to 1, now our job becomes we need to figure out how in the daylights somebody comes up with some of these answers, because these aren't just randomly done. Okay, so for instance, right, the first one, if I do, instead of doing times 7, I do divided by 7. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this one, I didn't do right. I'd do 600 divided by 7. Okay, that didn't make much sense. Now, how could somebody get 420? No. No, nobody is celebrating that day.
I had to work that day.
What's the difference between B and D? If you look at those numbers, physically when you look at it, yeah, somebody, maybe instead of 600, did 60 times 7. That's easy enough to have happen. You go and hit your calculator twice and the button jams, and you get that instead and you don't pay attention. That could happen.
Next one's 600 plus 7.
Exactly. What about E?
Is this 6,000 plus 7?
Yeah, they really screwed up. Not only did they get stuck on the 0 button, but then they added. Now, I would hope that you would just look at a problem like this on an exam and say, 600 miles per hour for 7 hours, I don't think you went 6,000 miles. I would hope that would click in, but if not, well, It varies. It can be anything from lazy test question writers to them just wanting you to not have as many options to think about just because of the number of questions. Okay, so that's kind of your job here, to play with numbers until you can find something why the ACT people or test-taking people would pick that as a possible choice. What screw-up could you make to make this work? And this is what actual test writers do. They sit around and go, okay, how can I screw this up? I don't know how much exactly they get paid.
It'd be so boring to just sit there and think.
Now, see, personally, I would enjoy this job. I think it'd be kind of fun. But that's me. I'm a nerdy math guy.
Like this.
Huh? What's that?
Wait, all the answers the right answer.
Yes and no. But there's not a lot of job positions for these, so it gets a little trickier.
But what if your kid told you that? What do you want to be when you grow up? A guy that messes up math answers?
Oh, my. You have to be smart to mess up things on purpose, though.